Hi, hello, welcome to another episode of Man with a Mentor. I am your host, the man, Matthew Barnard, and you may be wondering what a show called Man with a Mentor may be about. And basically, it's about me finding interesting people and the career paths they've been on and how they got to be in the successful place where they are right now. And I have a guy here right now, and his name is Nevin Smith. Welcome.
Glad to be here.
Oh, yay. And I'm going to do a little intro for you. And it goes like this. Nevin Smith is a journalist, community organizer, and award-winning writer. Sound good?
Yeah. No, that's pretty accurate with how I describe myself.
Right. Well, why don't we start with actually what you're doing now and because you're transitioning from one thing to another. So say what you're doing now, and then we'll go back and bust it open.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm currently a candidate for City Council in Kettering. I'm running at large for the upcoming election in November. I sit on the city's sustainability and steering committees. Sustainability is a brand new thing in Kettering. We're one of only two cities in the Miami Valley that actually have a sustainability manager, and I get to work with her directly on that committee. So it's exciting. It's groundbreaking. It's kind of a new frontier. We have a new city manager, Matt Barnard, and he came in and decided to, breathe the fresh air into a lot of the things that we're doing over in Kettering.
What made you think, I want to go into politics now as opposed to doing what you were doing before? What was the thing that opened your eyes to it?
So I came back to the area. I'd lived in Kettering for a long time, and I had moved away to follow career opportunities, and I came back. My dad, unfortunately, he was very sick, and he'd always had a lot of health complications. And unfortunately, he ended up catching COVID. We thought he was going to pass away immediately, but he soldiered on. But at that point, it was really, it was not a matter of if but when. And we made a really hard decision. We were living down in South Carolina at the time, so we came back to the area and took care of him in his final months. And then after he passed away, I decided that I really wanted to change tracks. Felt a lot of gratitude towards the community. We were out of state. He was living in my home in Kettering, and I'd get phone calls from people. He'd fall in the supermarket, and he'd give strangers my number, and they'd call me and say, "Hey, we helped your dad." So we have really excellent people who are willing to help strangers, and so I feel that deep amount of gratitude there. And then Kettering Health, they were excellent with him and our family and his passing. So there's a lot of wonderful things here in the area that I feel a deep amount of gratitude for.
Right. Well, let's go back to when you were a little Nevin. How did you think growing up, or going off to college? When did you think journalism might be for me, and who pointed you in the right direction, or were your parents on board with it, or did they want you to be a doctor or something? Or what was the situation?
So my dad, he held 2 masters in engineering, one in chemical, one in mechanical, and then my mother is a PhD in human physiology, and they both had fascinating careers. My mom, she did a lot of pharmaceutical consulting, so when a company wanted to put a product on the market, she'd be the one to kind of tell them, hey, this is what the FDA wants from you, and this is what you need to do in order to get it through, clinical trials, things like that. And then my dad, he went into aerospace, so he worked on fascinating things like separator charges for the space shuttle. Probably the biggest thing that he ever worked on was the A-10 aircraft that the military uses. He was part of the team that designed the depleted uranium rounds that are shot out of, I don't know if you're familiar with the plane, but it basically has this giant minigun built through the entire fuselage that they use to blow up bunkers and tanks, and he was part of the team that actually designed it. Couldn't talk a whole lot about it because of the security clearances and stuff. But
right. The word uranium scares me.
So of course, I've got this background of scientists, and that's really what I wanted to be when I was a little kid. I remember when Jurassic Park came out, and I wanted to be, a paleontologist, and there was a period of time where, I was like 5, 6. I was like, I want to be an astronaut. But, right around the time that I got to be 10 years old, things dramatically changed in our family. Both of my parents became very ill. My dad, he lost his sight. He had kidney failure. He had a couple of heart attacks. My mother, she had early onset for schizophrenia. And so our family dramatically changed. We went from, 2 very successful career-minded individuals to both parents being disabled. We lost everything. And so we ended up coming here to the Miami Valley because my dad, we had family in the area. He was the first one over in his family to immigrate over here to the States. And so we moved to be closer to them. My uncle, he was a surgeon with the Dayton Heart Hospital for many, many years, so he knew a lot of people in the healthcare community that could give my dad good health care. And he definitely needed it. He had all those health complications.
So what led you after all that, to what you thought you wanted to pursue? And how did that look like?
So I ended up spending most of my 20s taking care of my family. So I actually went to school rather late. I was like 26, 27, maybe even 28. God, time is flying through our fingers. But it was around that time that I got into school, and I decided to go study mass communications because I was fascinated with what was going on with our social media sphere. I was seeing a lot of the things that were happening in and around 2016, and it was like a brand new frontier. And kind of the way that I almost look at it is, I love history, and it's almost a sea change moment, kind of like when Nixon and Kennedy debated each other, and you had these different perceptions of what was going on with that presidential debate based on the medium people were looking at it from, whether it was on radio or television. So looking at the entirety of what has been going on for the last decade, I feel like that's kind of the sea change moment in terms of our discourse on politics and how we perceive the news, how we perceive what's going on in the world around us. I look at it almost kind of like the beginning of the last century. We got to the 1910s, 1920s, and then we had all of this technology that kind of bubbled out from that, and people had no clue what to do with it, how to regulate it, and we're kind of in the same moment historically where we have all this brand new technology, and a lot of our government systems, frankly, have not caught on to what it needs to be regulated and what it needs to be done with in order to make sure that we have a successful republic. So right. we are definitely in a moment.
So you went off and you started pursuing a career in journalism, and you were forging ahead. But then you ended up coming back here and being more of a caregiver for your father again. Did that feel like you were going off track, or did that help you to get on the track that you are now?
I had a lot of time on my hands to think about it. This is not the first time that I've dropped everything to help my dad. I did it in high school, and I didn't hesitate for a second. Now, granted, in news, in journalism, you've got to when you sign on with a studio, you sign contracts that require you to be in a place for so many years and require you to do, so much in order to not take a lot of financial penalties. And I worked with my employer down there. I gave him a ton of advance notice. I trained my replacement, and we had conversations about how to do a successful transition between me and the next person. And so, I took all the steps I needed to do to make sure that they were taken care of, but also that I was taking care of, my dad, because it got to a point where I just could not feasibly make the decisions needed for him from where I was at, because I was getting phone calls from doctors where, they were saying, hey, we've got to flip a coin. Well, they don't say flip a coin, but, it's like, hey, it's 50-50 on whether or not this medical procedure may even work. And of course, I'm, hundreds of miles away, and I can't, even talk to him because he's like intubated. So it's like there was a lot of unhappy situations around that. So I feel I made that very difficult decision. It's like, we need to be there because rest of our family had moved away. He was here by himself, and so he needed somebody. And I made my peace. I was going to be that somebody.
Did you find it difficult to think about like pivoting from that to what you're doing now? Were you like, oh, what do I need to do that? Do I have to start all over again? Am I going to start at the bottom? Or were you like, no, I'm going to put this behind me and I'm going to move on to this, and it's going to happen. I'm going to do everything I need to do to make it happen?
I didn't find it particularly difficult. I'd always been interested in politics. I'd always been, when I was working at ABC 22 Fox 45, I was oftentimes the guy who handled the political side of coverage of things. So I understood a lot of, how to communicate, what that release cycle of information looked like. I had a front row seat to literally everything through COVID. So anytime Governor DeWine would speak, I would be one of the people who was making sure that it goes up on Facebook and YouTube through the station channels and writing the stories on that. Anytime Public Health would talk about what was going on here in the Miami Valley, I was in charge of making sure that our digital production of that was correct. Anytime Trump would get up during the COVID briefings in the evening, that was me making sure that we had that on our digital platforms. So I got to see all these things, and then when it came to actual campaign season, I got front row seat to being able to look at what the campaigns were communicating, how they were talking to people, the information that they were doing, and I gathered a lot of information from that. I got to see it firsthand. Mike Turner's people, like Sherrod Brown's people. So I had all this information that I had accumulated over the years. And knowing that, I also recognized that within government, there is a massive deficit in terms of understanding of what technology does, how it works, and this is an area where I can really bring things to the forefront. In Ohio, we've adopted sunshine laws because we believe that the work of the people should be done in a space that everyone can see it. And as a journalist, I was always very, very aware of how important it is to give respect to that accountability, that when we do that work, that people should be informed, that it should be clear. And so I carry that with me everywhere I go. One of my mentors was Ray Marcano. He used to work at Cox Media. He's an excellent teacher. I can't praise him enough. And he instilled in me a lot of that discipline of carrying the ethics with you. You don't put words in other people's mouths. You let them speak for themselves. And when you're given the megaphone, you are given a burden of responsibility. And so I want to carry that with me into the political sphere. I think that's something that we need. And the understanding of how to communicate with the public, to be able to make it clear what exactly is going on, and being able to break that language down because government is messy. There's getting from, an idea of, hey, we want to do this thing, to this is policy. That's a very complicated, messy process. It requires a lot of compromise. It requires a lot of talking to people. But then once you get to a certain point and you're starting to talk to people about it, that's the point where I feel that there's a definite breakdown, both technologically and also in terms of methodology.
Let's talk about the Kettering Leadership Academy and what they did for you.
So it's a program run by Kettering. It's a 9-month course, and you basically get to go to our various departments, like police department, fire department. You meet all of our wonderful public servants. You go see the city council. You go to see our school board, and you get to kind of get an overview of what they do day to day. You get to see what they actually do. We had a wonderful day out at the fire department where they showed us, the jaws of life, and we got to put on all their gear and climb down the side of a building. And so you get to really experience, what it's like for them to, put on their gear and actually go into a situation. And
because it weighs like 40 pounds or something.
Oh yeah, no, I was about dead.
Right.
So you get a lot of respect, and you get a lot of insight into what actually goes on. But the class that I was in, our city manager was actually in it because he was new to the area. He wanted to actually get his feet on the ground and meet all of these wonderful people and see the same things that we were seeing. So I got to meet him, and one of our city councilors, Lisa Duvall. She was like the liaison for the program. And Dawn Kirchner, our current sustainability manager, she was in charge of the program at the time, but she has since moved on to the sustainability side. But she has a deep background in working with volunteers, so she's bringing that same level of excellence. And if you see people out in the park, doing those trash cleanups, she's taken that experience from one area and applying it to another.
I'm just wondering if you could give any advice to someone who is working in one field and is kind of saying, this isn't fulfilling me, this isn't satisfying me, I want to go over here and do this, but I don't know how to start, I don't know like where to go, I don't know like the best way to do it. Like if you could give someone with who's stuck in that conundrum of feeling stuck where they are but not knowing how to like move forward into something else, what would some good pieces of advice be for said person?
So take stock of what you know, take stock of what you've done. When I was looking at the encompassment of my career and the things that I've done, I've done documentary work, I've done journalism, like some of the things that define my career, like the Murdoch murder trial, the Detective Del Rio funeral, all the things that I had done. I looked at it and asked myself, well, what's transferable? What am I the expert in? I'm a big believer in practice and honing your craft, and then finding ways to apply that craft into other areas that people will want to hear about or need. I've been given the opportunity to speak at local schools about my expertise. I've been given the opportunity to talk about ethics and AI. So there's a lot of different things that fall under your bubble when you've accomplished and when you've got things under your belt that you can actually lean back on. So taking stock of that and then starting to go, well, I'm the expert in this, and then also having the humility to say, I'm not the expert in these things, but I'm willing to learn. I'm willing to encompass that. And that's something that, from a journalism background, that's something I always had to look at everything that I was working on, because I wasn't an expert. I wasn't an expert in COVID. I wasn't a doctor. I could only, pass on what other people had to say, and making those judgment calls of, constantly questioning yourself and being like, who am I in the greater picture of things? I'm not the end all be all. I'm just one person in the chain. And so finding your niche, finding the place that you're excellent in, and then expanding from there and being able to say, well, I'm not 100% this, but these are the ways that my skills can kind of slot in and interface with whatever it is anybody else wants to do, and being able to market that.
What's next, like for you and your new career path? Like, do you want to be senator someday, or mayor, or whatever? Like, where do you see your paths? You're laying the stones now, but do you have a overall view of where you want to end up?
Well, I've spent many years standing in the shadows of giants in the hopes that someday I would be one. And I don't know where this path will take me. I'm open to failure. That is something that any venture you should be prepared to accept. No, there are no guarantees. But if people find that I am something that they want, and that they are willing to support it and carry it forward, my operation is not in a vacuum. I have my loving fiance behind me. I have a network of people behind me, and they believe. And a lot of the people who I have met, I'm knocking on doors, I'm going to public events, they are starting to believe. And I think that if we can rise to the occasion, there is no reason not to. Because ultimately, everything that I'm doing in this shift is about making sure that I live up to that legacy that my dad gave me.
All right. Thank you, Nevin Smith. I want to wish you all the best of luck as you go through the year and hustle. And when's the election? How does it work?
So right now, we are in the process of gathering signatures for my petition. Once we collect enough, we'll submit it at the county, and then they will certify. And then at that point, the election will be in November. So we've been campaigning, and we've been doing this campaign for months now, but we're coming up close to the end of this phase. So I got to finish up my petition by August 21st.
Right.
And then, the sky's the limit. This year will go by very quickly.
Right. Thank you, Nevin, and thank you for listening or watching to another episode of Man with a Mentor. Bye.